So,
Uh-huh.
ready?
I'm ready.
All right, I'm as ready as I can try to be ready. Anyway, um, boom, boom. Ooh, we're ready and rolling. Boom, boom. Here we go. It's Martin and Michelle talking tech, heritage, education. Once again, the question of the day: who invented time? Let's go! Welcome to the M&M podcast. I am your co-host Michelle, and this is, of course, as always, Martin. Hi, Martin.
Uh-huh. Hi, Michelle.
Uh, so Martin and I, we were struggling to figure out what we were going to talk about today, and finally we decided that we wanted to figure out who invented time, right? Is that
Exactly.
the idea behind it?
That's the idea. Who invented time?
Mm.
I was
So
thinking of it and I thought of a Doctor Who reference, and I'm not even a fan of Doctor Who.
no, we do know who is a fan of Doctor Who though. Um,
Yeah,
anyway, so during your little research session, did you find out who invented time?
I didn't find out much on who invented time.
Mm,
Though, what I found out was uh, most of the time references I have or my ideas of time are restricted to literature available in the English language
mm,
and to some extent British society. Like the idea of time immemorial.
mm-hmm.
They always say from time immemorial, and back in my undergraduate when we were studying, we had a module on law, and time immemorial actually had a definition.
Okay.
It's based on British law, and it's basically from the time when stuff would be recorded,
Mm-hmm.
from as far back as recorded history goes.
Uh, so 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 written history we're talking about specifically?
Written history.
Okay.
Let me see if I can get the actual definition I was looking up for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is a definition. I'm just using Wikipedia.
Go.
I'm gonna give you two ideas, two meanings of what time immemorial means.
Okay.
Time immemorial is a phrase meaning time extending beyond the reach of your memory,
Mm-hmm.
record, or tradition. Indefinitely ancient, ancient beyond memory or record. Also, dictionary.com defines time immemorial as the first expression comes from English law, where it signifies beyond legal memory, specifically before the reign of Richard.
Mm.
That was between the year 1189 and 1199
Mm-hmm.
AD, I presume,
I,
fixed as a legal limit for bringing up certain kinds of lawsuits.
yes.
so, so maybe the Britons invented time in English.
In
In my
English.
ideas of English, I'd say, yeah. Of course, it's not right. Time always existed, but again, if you look to global global reference points for time.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time, it was GMT. Right now, there's different times. There's European Standard Time or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Central, yeah.
Yeah,
There's
Central
different,
European time. No.
yeah. But at that time, it was at longitude zero, Greenwich Meridian. They decided that's the middle of the world, and that's where time starts.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, of course, not accurate, but yeah.
So it's funny because when you had mentioned working on looking who invented time, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I looked into clocks and actually who made
Uh-huh.
clocks, and
Uh-huh.
so you probably heard of the Dark Ages, right? The
Yeah, I heard of them.
medieval Dark Ages.
Mm-hmm.
The medieval Dark Ages is roughly this is what I understand. It's a time period, right, where in Europe specifically,
Uh-huh.
there's not much written history, and therefore there's not much that the historians basically labeled it as a dark era because there was not much. known about that time period, and there
Uh-huh.
didn't seem like there was any developments. There was no real recorded history or anything that
Mm.
happened during that period that they really know about. Of course, they've discovered a few new things for now, and they're just still discovering some things. Uh, some basically some archaeological sites, some different other sites. Um, but I knew that, of course, Europe is not the world, right? That's something we've
True.
established.
But for a long time, that was the world.
Right.
Based on a lot of history we have, that was the world at the time.
So I
Going
actually,
back to the time immemorial thing.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Uh,
but so what I decided to do is I decided to go another roundabout way.
uh,
I looked into what was I doing? I was doing some research on philosophy and different ideas. This was for other stuff that I was doing
mhm,
for classes, but I
mhm,
stumbled upon a basically a project that happened within the past year that I
uh,
believe that UNESCO was a part of. Um,
uh-huh,
it was called the Year of Light,
uh-huh,
and what this was basically I believe it was an initiative of some sort uh,
uh-huh,
that let me see if I can find it again. Year
uh-huh,
of Light 2015. Um, International Year of Light. So this
uh-huh.
was a UNESCO. Yes, it was actually a UNESCO. Yeah. Um, it was an official website for the International Year of Light and light-based technologies. And so
Interesting.
yeah, it was pretty fascinating. And there's all sorts of programs and events and why light matters. Uh, and
Uh-huh,
and basically it was just to raise global awareness to how light-based technologies promote sustainable development
uh-huh,
and kind of going back in time and talking about how light technologies were so important.
mhm,
And as a result, I kind of hip hopped between a bunch of different scientists and different thinkers.
mhm,
And one that I found wasn't
uh-huh.
directly related to the Year of Light, but was uh, was an inventor during the Dark Ages, quote unquote,
Uh-huh.
of history. His name, if you want to look it up, it's Al
Uh-huh.
Jaziri. So A
Al
L
Jazeera.
yeah A L dash Jazari.
Uh-huh.
And this guy, he invented the crankshaft.
Uh-huh.
So speaking of mundane technologies, this
Mhm.
guy helped create what now runs trains, cars, and different automotive engines that use
Uh-huh.
explosions to it's a crankshaft. So
Power.
yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
It's taking a wheel that is rotating
Mhm.
and then
Uh-huh.
transferring that power into uh, ugh, ugh,
Kinetic energy.
yeah, basically. I forget
Yeah.
exactly how to describe it because it's been a very long time since I've taken physics. Um,
Mhm.
but it basically it takes rotary motion, I think, into linear motion. Uh,
Uh-huh.
so taking something that's spinning in a circle and taking it so it can
And
move up and down
using
or side to
gears
side.
to change the direction of the force and yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And and it's this guy is like if we didn't have this guy to invent the crankshaft, it would have been much later that
Uh,
the industrial age would have happened, right? Um,
uh-huh.
and continuing on with the idea of time, one of his most important inventions apparently was something called, or at least most well-known inventions, was the elephant clock.
Really? What was that?
Basically, it was
Elephant clock.
yeah, an elephant I
Uh,
basically it has an elephant on it, or it was
uh,
an elephant would I for, let's see if I can actually explain it correctly. Um,
uh,
the right, and so I think the idea was is that you would put it on the elephant, and then the clock would ride on its back. But a lot of these things uh, it was statues, right? And so it was a statue of
Mm.
an elephant with the clock on it. And
Uh-huh.
what he basically did is it was notable for several inventions on this specific contraption. It was the first clock which had uh, basically you know the clocks that have that either tweet when it hits like 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock,
Oh,
right?
I know them. I call them
Yeah,
cuckoo clock.
yeah. Basically, he invented the cuckoo clock.
Cuckoo. Uh-huh.
He basically
No.
invented that the first automation for that. So at certain intervals of
Uh-huh.
time, in his case, it would be a human robot striking a symbol, and
Mm-hmm.
which is super cool. And
Uh-huh.
it was also the first water clock to accurately record the passage of like time hours to match the uneven lengths of the day throughout the year.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and so
Wait,
yeah, go.
uneven days throughout the year.
Sorry?
So I'll have to take it back a bit. So that means that the clock would tell you the correct time regardless of whether the day is longer or the day is shorter.
I I'm pretty sure that's yeah. I think that's pretty much
Interesting.
right. Um,
Uh-huh.
and so and this was done. It was described. I think that it was marked down as invented in 12,006,
Uh-huh.
uh, which is pretty far back, and an impressive thing, right?
Really impressive.
He also did a bunch of other weight-driven water clocks and other castle clocks, but this guy was Al Jaziri was really he was on top of his stuff. He knew what was going on, um, and in addition to what I was talking about earlier with the European Dark Ages, right?
Uh-huh.
This period of history in the Middle East was known as the Islamic Golden Age,
Uh-huh.
and where I think we talked about in last episode where
Yes.
a lot of the science and a lot of the technologies and ideas came from the Middle East, and
Uh-huh.
because they were just super they were on top of their game back in the
They
day.
did a lot in math, science, algebra.
Yeah, algebra, exactly. Algebra, geometry, trig,
Uh-huh.
calc. Uh,
Alchemy.
yeah, we can say
Yeah.
alchemy. Um, and of course optics,
Uh-huh.
which is what I mentioned earlier.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I mean the science that came out of this region was absolutely it's amazing. It's stuff that I still don't understand either because I don't have the
Mm.
patience or it's just not it's really cool.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it raises some questions, right? It's like why don't we? I mean, I say we. I'm talking
Uh-huh.
about back at home. Uh,
Uh-huh.
I know we did a little bit of this during our history classes,
Uh-huh.
um, and we kind of go over these subjects, but it's almost astounding the fact that we really don't know any of these names of these people who did these amazing advancements back in the day, uh,
Mm.
and who really set the groundwork for a lot of the amazing technology and ideas that happen for
To,
philosophy, for technology, for
uh-huh.
science, for medicine.
So, speaking of people who invented different ways of measuring time back in the day, there's other ways of measuring time that I'm not really certain if specific inventors are attributed, but they're in a way interesting to me.
Hmm.
There's the hourglass, for instance.
Hmm.
There's the sundial. I
Hmm.
like the sundial,
Sundial's pretty cool.
and though I never really got to figure out how it works. I know it measures the relative position of the sun to the earth and how the shadow is cast on an object, and that's the time.
Hmm.
As a kid, I think I used to have, I had a lot of human sundials around me, And people used to look at the position of the sun in the sky and decide it's 11. We had very weird ways of telling the time back at home. There was either no, that's just some people's ideas of how time works. So
Mhm.
we for listeners' information, just for the listeners' awareness, Kenya is on the equator, so day and night is pretty much even, 12 hours, 12 hours. So, and there's not much fluctuation like in the northern or southern hemisphere and whatnot. So, where the sun's position was in January and 6 months later is pretty much the same. So, yet people can look at the sun and decide, okay, it's 10 o'clock, or it's 11, or it's 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And that's how they are doing their business. Then there was another way, before the internet, before, yeah, before the internet was mainstream, I should say.
Mhm.
The other way of finding out how accurate someone's clock is was by asking them, okay, so what's the time? Someone says it's 2:30. How do you know? How did you set your clock? We have a national broadcaster. It's called KBC, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, and every hour, of course, they have their news and everything. And because that's a national reference point, that's what we used to use to tell the time.
Ah, okay.
So if someone has to say this time is accurate, it's like when the news was being read, I set my clock, so it has to be accurate.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Um.
Hmm. Well, sundials are pretty cool. I I guess you have to adjust in certain hemispheres, right?
Mhm.
Um, or maybe you didn't, because we also have to keep in mind that uh, you know you know daylight savings time, right?
Yeah.
You do you remember how that was? I mean, maybe not remember, but do you know how that came to be?
Okay. What I read about it was the idea was it's a way of saving electricity apparently, or
Okay.
saving power. So the idea is to, depending on winter or summer, the idea is to move the clock 1 hour ahead or behind so that people can make as much use of daylight and turn on their lights later, I guess.
Yeah, so something like
Yeah.
that.
Uh,
It was as far as I remember, it was that, but it was specifically during. I'm not sure if it was World War One or World War Two,
uh-huh,
but it was definitely during one or two of the world wars. The
uh-huh,
idea that they wanted to save the electricity to power engineering and different other industries, so to say,
uh-huh,
to produce the war machine, right?
uh-huh,
And so at that, I think that that was the case, and the idea, and now of course it's stuck, and sometimes it's a real pain because uh, I forget which one is the worst one. I think it's the one where the clock goes forward.
uh-huh. So you have to wake up 1 hour earlier.
Yeah, something like that. It's whichever one where you basically
You lose
lose
an
an
hour.
hour. Yeah, exactly. Um, but see now, out of all the time inventions, that one was probably the most frustrating, even though it made the most sense in terms of in terms of technology at the time.
You know, and the more I read about it, towards the end they say that it's debatable about whether it actually leads to more savings or it's a placebo, a panacea of some sort.
Yeah, and I mean
It's really a good thing.
at this point, our world is so global anyway that
Mm-hmm.
the fact that we have to switch times every so often
Mm-hmm.
doesn't seem entirely necessary. I don't know. It's an idea. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but yeah. So anyway, to go back to the science and ideas that right the invention of time, quote unquote, maybe not the
Mm-hmm.
invention, but at least the use of clocks. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it was really neat though, just exploring the golden age of the Muslim civilization, uh,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a subject that I've read about in a few of the classes that I've taken, maybe now three
Mm-hmm.
years ago, which has been a while. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it always interested me because it's just one of those subjects that was never taught, uh, where I was. Not in
uh,
and not so much it wasn't taught, but it wasn't
uh,
expressed in a way that stuck with the students because it wasn't
mm.
it wasn't it wasn't deemed as important. Um,
I, I think that's the same case for me and for us. We were taught when I was about, how old was I? When I was about 7, we actually had a class where we were taught how to read the clock. It was in math.
mhm.
So we were taught, of course, there's digital clock watches, and we used to wonder why can't we just use those? But we are taught that the long hand, say, the thinnest counts the seconds, then the other long but slightly fat one counts the minutes,
Yeah,
then the short one, the really stubby one, counts the hours.
yeah,
And you are taught when you look at this and this, that's the time.
mhm.
You can know what time it is. But we were not really taught about time itself. And I don't think throughout my studies,
Mhm.
I tried to lean towards the technical side and science side,
Mhm.
especially in my high school and for 2 years in university before I changed my course. Uh, and all along, there was a mention of so many other inventors and inventions, but time itself was, I think it's been taken for granted. It's a given.
Yeah, yeah,
It's taken as it's just there.
yeah.
And very little attention is given into how it developed, how people moved from just looking at the sky to having digital watches
Yeah,
to
to
having a quantum clock,
yeah. Re
whichever way that works.
yeah, recording some increment of what we call time,
uh,
right? Because what if we didn't have clocks? I mean,
uh,
I probably everybody would be late anyway, but then everybody
uh,
would be on time because they would show up at the same time anyway. Um, uh, but I mean, just I don't know. It's having the idea that we're counting away time, and it creates our ideas for past, present, and future, right? Uh, we talk about heritage as something of the past and something of the present, mind you. Um, but heritage in the past is is a result of time. It's a result of where we are calculating how many years, which is how many months, which is how many days, which is how many this, and of course we're using just one kind of time measurement. There are tons of other time measurements. The different religions have different calendars which identify when their holidays are, when the important days of the years are.
Speaking of religions and speaking of heritage and speaking of technology, I'm gonna have to fact check myself.
Okay.
Uh, the hourglass is likely to have been invented by some French monk.
Oh,
Go French!
yeah, go
Called
French. They accomplished something.
yeah, in the 8th century AD,
Okay.
Liutprand. Liutprand. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Send it to me. Since I'm French, I'm your
Uh,
local translator in this case. Um,
uh, okay, the
but
first hourglass or sun clock is said to have been invented by a French monk called Liutprand. I'll send it to you in a second.
okay.
In the 8th century AD. So yeah, time has a lot to do with religion, I guess. And that also brings about arguments about time with,
Mm.
if you go on the religious side, yeah, people who practice Judaism or Christians say the world is 6,000 years old.
Yep. And
Because, yeah,
but that's how they figure time. That's a different way
mm,
of thinking about time. Um,
mm,
it's in terms of a science sense, and in
mm,
terms of uh, trying to figure out things like evolution or trying to figure out things different chronological histories or whatnot.
mm,
There is of course the established time, but in
mm,
religions, as you said, they think that the world is some think that the world is 6,000 years old, and
mm,
that's because that's what they think as history, and you know what? That's
mm.
I disagree with that. I think the world is a lot older. But
Uh,
it's another way at looking at the world. It's another way at
mhm.
looking at time.
So, and what excites me about the issue of religion and time again is I was, I'm still a Christian. I was gonna say I was a Christian, but yeah. So, as a kid, I used to wonder if, based on the biblical story of creation and the chronological order and whatever,
Hmm.
I have to wonder, is the world really 6,000 years old? But there's also all this evidence that shows the world is much older.
Yes. Yeah.
Then there's an interesting thing I came across some years back about some people who embrace both theology and science
Hmm.
to try and make much more sense out of it.
Yeah. Actually,
And
yeah.
uh
In all seriousness, I actually took a class that was I took two classes
mm,
that were very that they were very they had a lot of parallels, but there was some key differences. Um,
mm,
One was the archaeology of Israel and Palestine, and the
mm,
other was it was the same thing, except
uh
it was looking at it through a religious lens.
mm,
Um, I'm trying to remember the name of the class because it was quite fascinating.
mm.
It was, oh man. Oh, this is gonna bug me. Oh no. Uh, it was, oh, I got it. It was a Bible and archaeology.
uh
So I had an archaeology of Israel and Palestine and the Bible and archaeology. And so
mm,
yeah, and so the ideas that were thrown around between each course was very interesting because the archaeology of Israel and Palestine focused
mm,
on just what was there, how you focus on the digs, how the digs were done, who was important, and the different ideas that and theories that came out of those places.
uh
But archaeology as a discipline originally came from people looking for proof for Jesus and Moses and David and all of
uh
the biblical and uh, religious figures within these religions.
uh
It was,
and that
go ahead.
yeah, I think I'm gonna quote the Bible, Second Peter 3 verse 8. Uh, but do not forget this one thing, dear friends. With the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day. So
Mhm.
that that throws a spanner in the works of the point of the school of thought that says the world is 6,000 years old.
Yeah, yeah,
Because the world might, if you use that 1,000 days, 1,000 years in one day,
yeah. Hmm.
so, and God is like, yeah, God is God. So,
Well said.
yeah. So, based on that, it's clear that 6,000 years might mean over 6 million on one hand,
Hmm.
or something close to that, or even, yeah, something like 6 million. Definitely more because one day times 366 times 1,000, that's a lot.
That is a lot.
Or on the other hand, it could be go on the flip side and the 6,000 years would be one day.
Hmm.
That's like going on the other on the crazier outer limits,
Right, right.
where some philosophers or critical thinkers ask if all these realities just planted in us and the world started yesterday?
If the world started just yesterday, Martin, I that would be I don't know what I've been doing for the past 23 years then. Uh,
Just planted in your head.
that's oh man. Now we're going to Matrix level type stuff. Oh.
Exactly.
And actually, that's funny that you mentioned it because I just watched a
Yeah.
little bit of The Matrix yesterday. Anyway, that's a
Uh,
side tangent
uh,
for maybe another time. Um,
mm,
but let's see if there's anything else that you know what that for me that's pretty much what I wanted to hit on is basically the idea on the Muslim the Muslim golden age, right?
mm.
Something that I think was just totally ignored in certain circles, and I totally should be it should be talked about more, and I think it's important.
It should be because they had a lot of inventions, especially in in what we call science today, or STEM, science,
Mhm.
technology, engineering, mathematics. I don't know if I got it in the correct order, but yeah, what
Mhm.
people call science today, a lot of the groundwork
Yeah.
was laid way back, and a lot of it was laid in what we call today the Muslim or Arab world
Hmm.
in the Middle East. A lot of great inventors who are forgotten,
Hmm.
uh, forgotten or ignored,
Yeah.
one of the two.
Yeah, and but it's good. I like to see different people and different academics actually working to make these things more available and more accessible to the Western world, which
Mm,
has either conveniently or unconveniently ignored the origins of their own science.
mm.
Uh, so, is there anything else that you want to mention or any ideas?
Did you know that? Yeah, about North Korea and time.
Oh, North Korea in time. All right, I'm interested.
Yeah, that was sometime last year. It was in August last year.
Hmm.
North Korea turned back their clock by 30 minutes to establish their own time zone.
Oh, wait,
Yeah,
okay. So oh right, because each time zone is what? It's an hour
most conventional time zones are now, I think, 95% of time zones
or a 1 hour
zone an
time period.
hourly. Yeah,
Okay, and so to be different.
it will be different so that they don't get to shake off the control by imperialist neighbors and yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, once again, just an interesting use of time to kind of separate each other, right?
Uh,
Um, oh man, North Korea is an interesting place. Maybe we can, maybe one of these days we can talk about North Korean heritage. That would be fascinating.
that would be super.
Oh man. All right. Well, we'll think about it. We'll do it for next time.
I have one question, one more
Yeah.
question for you. Yeah, if you had to do anything different to time, what would you do? If you had the chance to change time, personal
Ooh,
time, whichever time,
that is an intensely
how time
person.
works.
Man. How time works, or if I had to change.
Uh,
Oh, so we're changing something about time, not something in my life.
yeah,
Okay.
whichever.
Okay.
To
Uh,
do with time.
yeah, yeah. If I had to change something about time, I would probably. Oh, what would it be? Man, you know what bothers me? Leap years.
Uh, uh,
Like leap years are cool and all, but those
uh.
poor children who are 4 years old, but in
That's my
fact,
brother.
really?
Yeah, my brother was born in the year 2000 and he turned 4 this year.
If right, it's like it's a real shame to say that. I mean, it
Yeah,
makes for great stories, mind you. I think
uh,
amazing, but
uh,
I just feel like there's another way to fix that without having a leap year, you know?
yeah. But that would be hard. That would mean we'll be accumulating all of these quarter days. Because
Yeah.
ideally, but an alternative would be maybe after 31st December, maybe 31st.25 December,
Yes.
where it's only a quarter of a day because they say the world's one complete revolution around the sun is 365 and a quarter. So there's this special day that only lasts for a quarter of a day. That's 6 hours.
Yeah, that would work. Maybe. I
Would be
don't
an
know.
interesting holiday of sorts where you get to do everything possible you can do within.
That would
within
be. Oh.
then you just jump to it's gonna bring a lot of complications.
Yeah. Well, we can probably discuss how we're gonna fix leap year. But yeah, that leap year for me would be the big thing to somehow. I don't know how you would fix it, but I would fix it. I would
Uh,
maybe it's like spread the seconds out over the year, right?
mhm.
I don't know.
What
Anyways,
I'd do was, what
hmm?
did I do? I'd I always wanted a 25-hour clock.
That would be interesting.
So at the end of the day, the stuff I still haven't done, I'm like, oh look, I have an extra hour.
Ah, okay.
Considering we are taught how to experience time,
Right.
and you get to learn, and you get to learn that 1 minute is 60 seconds, and 1 hour is 60 minutes, and one day is 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so we train ourselves to squeeze everything into these
24
time
hours.
slots. Yeah,
Ah.
whether we want to or not, because
Oh.
there's the brain and its circadian cycle that measures time on its own
Mm.
and controlling our sleep and wake up times and everything. So if I could retrain myself to have 25 hours, for instance,
That would be brilliant. I like that. I really like that.
I just have one of them as happy hour where
uh,
I just
okay.
do whatever I want, then I back to reality
Yeah, yeah, that would be good.
or something of the sort.
Man,
I'm not
time.
sure how practical that would be in the real world, but
Hmm.
yeah.
No, I really like it. Uh, all right, so let's see. We made it to 35 minutes. That's pretty
Hmm.
good. Uh, let's see. If anybody who's listening is interested what we have to say, please
Hmm.
subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hopefully, we'll be getting up some other sources where you can find this audio in other places.
Hmm.
Once again, these are just ideas that we're throwing around. This doesn't necessarily represent what we actually think about time or what we think about these different subjects, but it's a place where we get to think and brainstorm and talk about subjects that we think are interesting. Uh, Unless you have anything else to say, Martin, I think we will sign off.
Not much, except just feel free to fact check us, and
Oh yeah,
as Michelle said, any other ideas you have are more than welcome.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
this podcast one. It's a place for us to think, but really we're trying to get everybody to think about these subjects just a little bit differently. Anyway,
So
yeah, I think that's good. So until next time, then.
next time, cheers,
Bye.
au revoir, до свидания.
4.